At LinkedIn, we know hiring is a big deal for your small business. Sometimes it can feel a little overwhelming. LinkedIn uses data that you can't find anywhere else to give you the best candidates, all so you can feel confident you're hiring the best person for the job. And even a little hiring bliss. See why 86% of small businesses who post a job on LinkedIn get a qualified candidate within a day. Post a job for free at linkedin.com/achieve. LinkedIn, your next great hire is here.
Auto insurance can all seem the same until it comes time to use it. So don't get stuck paying more for less coverage. Switch to USAA Auto Insurance and you could start saving money in no time. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
USAA. Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to the podcast from Denver. I've got David Olcott, founder and CEO of Samurai Success, and he helps high net worth, high income earners who are seeking to go to the next level with executive coaching. So I'm really happy to have him on the show to discuss how he helps clients harness their power with Samurai Success coaching. So David, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Chris, for having me today. It's very exciting to see you, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, I'm really excited, and briefly introduce yourself and we'll dive right into the show.
Sure. So I'm the founder and steward of a company called Samurai Success. And we really focus on a very different approach to coaching that exists in the marketplace today. And when you hire Samurai Success, you hire not one coach, you actually hire 3 coaches. So each one of our coaches inside the pod system is really focused on helping you win from a high performance, psychology standpoint to design work about laying out all your structure and processes. So we are all on the same page, literally. And then also the financial part of that, which I studied at university and now brought into the coaching marketplace because, high-end net worth people want to see the rate of return. They want to see the metric of, hey, I'm investing in this. I want to see this return. And that's exactly what our coaching system is designed to do, is when you work with us, you see that return year after year.
Yeah. Interesting. And so, we'll get right into it. And, there's, coaching and life coaching, executive coaching has been around. So why Samurai Success and what makes you unique?
So when we started this 27 years ago, if you can believe that, October of last year was our 27th year, coaching wasn't a big thing. As a matter of fact, when I started introducing myself as a coach, Chris, it was like, people were like, baseball, football, what are you talking about here? So as prolific as it is today, we were pioneers of the beginning, and then no one even associated business coaching and personal what is all this stuff? That's what you have friends for, or my wife or my husband or whatever it is. So in the beginning of really what created this idea for me to be able to get into this field and really start doing things differently is because I saw books, seminars, knowledge-based things only took you so far. And people were really looking to be able to go further than that. So you go to a seminar, great seminar, just had a mind-blowing experience kind of stuff. And I witnessed this over and over again. And then people were leaving those programs and the water became warmer and colder and colder and colder. And then, they were freezing again, and it was like nothing had really changed. So I was like, what could really help them do that? And that was the inception of creating Samurai Success, of helping people in a long-term way really make the changes and dedicate to that discipline that we all know we need, but sometimes we forget.
Yeah. And I really love that because I think the first kind of coach was, back in the days was like Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins. And after that, you had a lot of, now these days, there's a lot of the coaching industry is very healthy and prolific. And the other question I have for you is, because I really love this idea of, the fastest way to get to somewhere is for someone to show you. And sometimes that means paying a lot of money, but that money will save you, sometimes decades, sometimes 2 decades. It'll get you to where you want to go. Here, a lot of questions in general, like people are asking, and then they're like, is coaching a waste of time? Is it a waste of money? Is it really going to get me to where I already am? How do you address that?
So I think in every industry, there's going to be the outliers of what we're about to talk about. So let's just get clear with this, right? So in general terms, though, most of the format of coaching is really it's kind of like talk therapy, right? You have a situation, let's talk through it. Then I'm going to share my years of experience and strategy with you to solve the problem. Well, in terms that I think we all very familiar with, that's like handing someone a fish. And what we do at Samurai Success is we've learned from the masters who say, stop giving people fishes and start teaching them how to fish. So why not just use that? Stop using it as a cliche and a funny thing to say as a pun or something, and really apply what the masters have spoken to us for thousands of years. And that's what we do here differently. We don't teach you what to think. We teach you how to think, because our number one goal here at Samurai Success is to get you to a position where you don't count on us anymore. You don't need us anymore. You're doing this stuff on your own. And then that's why clients years afterward come back to us for a refresher about, hey, I was kind of in a little drudgery kind of stuff like this. I was jamming for a little while, but now I come back and we just need to, and then it's just refreshing that stuff and getting you respirited kind of stuff. And that's when it gets fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the best type of education is teaching people how to think, and, as opposed to just rote memorization, really kind of analyzing and taking things in, and how do you apply it? How do you make it better? And the coach can actually do that. And, great, what was interesting is like even Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or even Tiger Woods, they have coaches, the top coaches in every discipline, nutrition, strength and flexibility, not just in their particular skill. The other question I have for you is, so one thing is you talk about people plus process is profits. And so talk about the people part and how that equates to profits.
So in our algorithm system, we really focus our clients on those three aspects: people, processes, and profits. And that's not new, but here's what's interesting. Our sequencing that is very unique. There's actually other coaches out there that have those same algorithms, but they usually put profits first, and then they put processes and then people last, or somewhere mixing those up. We know without a shadow of a doubt, 35 years has taught us very well that when you do not put people first, you don't understand how instrumental they are in that profit. And it's essential. It's this symbiotic relationship that not all of us always have the connection for. That's why we don't make the investment that we used to in people and ourselves. Putting people first helps us understand this concept that everything we do, Chris, in our lives, you actually had a great segment with a woman who was talking about one of her books about this concept of beliefs and values and positions and all that stuff. We refer to something as called programming. Programming, that's subconscious programming, right? That we all now starting to talk about. This is what we've been studying for all this period of time. And first of all, taking control of it, managing it, influence it, and know that you can actually change the programming. So as you and I are sitting here talking about finances, and let's just focus on that, because there's so many different subjects you and I can talk about today, but finances seem to be a big part of things. So let's just do that. By the time you're 7 years old, Chris, the majority of your programming, the way you're going to respond and react to all of life's decisions around financials, around love, about weight, about how your health is going to be, and we could go on thousands of different subjects, but every single one of those subjects has been programmed into you by the time you're 7 years old.
Wow.
7.
Wow.
That means everything after 7 is simply a reaction or response to the information you've programmed in, or how you're going to respond to financials. That's a challenging thing to think about. You're like, no. Well, if you've changed some of that programming since you were 7, then things are changing for you. But the secret of it is understanding that programming, because that programming dictates all these things, especially in the world of finances. When you get into a pressure situation, right? Well, here we are having this nice, fun, conscious conversation, and I'm at my best right now kind of stuff. You put pressure in that situation, especially the way money puts pressure on us, all of a sudden you automatically default back to that programming. And whatever that programming is how you're going to respond and react, also known as decisions. So you're pre-programmed sometimes to make money. Rich kids, why do rich kids growing up in rich households seem to be prolific, even if they're jerks or whatever other words that you want to use? It's programming, Chris. If you grow up in a household that's not rich, why do I keep sabotaging myself for this thing as I'm making all this money, but I can't keep hold of it? Why do lottery winners make all this money, and then statistically go back into debt further than when they didn't have the lottery money. Programming. Getting access to that programming is a source code for being able to change your behaviors, because your behaviors are linked to your belief systems. And if you change your behavior, because everybody's giving you the fish, giving you the strategy, let me tell you how to do that, but your belief does not support that behavior, as soon as pressure comes in, you'll revert to your old programming, your old behaviors around money, all the strategy goes away because all your beliefs force you back into that situation.
This episode is brought to you by Atlassian. Atlassian makes the team collaboration software that powers enterprise businesses around the world, including over 80% of the Fortune 500. With Atlassian's AI-powered software like Jira, Confluence, and Loom, you'll have more time to do the work that matters. In fact, Atlassian customers experience a 25% reduction in project duration per year. Unleash the potential of your team at Atlassian.com. Atlassian.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Yeah, fascinating. Yeah, we could have a huge conversation on just mindset, beliefs, just kind of it's interesting because a lot of the ideas and values around finances and money occur at the dinner table. It's just, talking and how people view it. And, for some, it's like very empowering, and for some, it's disempowering. So, the next question I have for you is kind of talk about process, and how does the process portion of the Samurai Success Method describe that, and how it's empowering and different?
So it's interesting because you mentioned mindset, right? So the three things that go together with that: mindset, skill set, tool set, right? Unfortunately, we focus too much on the tool set here in America, right? We're always looking for ChatGPT to solve the day and everything else like that. And that's a fascinating thing to think about, because that's an amazing tool. There's no doubt about it. We use aspects of it and things like this. But I will tell you that the thing that makes that tool work is the human prompting of that tool. And if you aren't skilled at asking it the right questions or giving it the right information, it's not going to give you what you're actually after. So you're still actually a big component of making that create the results you're after. So getting really good at asking quality questions is a really important part of that. But mindset, skill set, tool set. So the mindset is all about psychology. The skill set is the design work. So that design work means literally being on the same page. And we're dealing with some really big turnover issues in our companies today. And we're having a new generation, a new belief system coming into there. And we're all ranting and raving about this generation, and there are all kinds of verbiage going on about it. Here's the deal. If there's any statistic that really makes sense, that we're looking at the world differently. Owners and the new employees are looking at the world differently. The trick is to close the gap educationally. Those doctors, those owners, those lawyers, those accountants, they have a wealth of information called financials that not everybody else in the company ever sees, Chris. And yet they're making decisions every single day in your business that are affecting those financials without knowing those connections. So what we really focus on with our clients is really helping our clients see that difference, and then closing the gaps so they can see that. We literally do this by designing the processes work that is the checklist system that says, if I'm coming to work, this is what I need to do to win. And it starts closing the gap, that educational knowledge gap of, hey, I thought things were this way, but now I have this new information. I'm totally looking at it a different way. And it empowers me as an employee to be able to start doing things differently. So that design work is so critical to literally being on the same page and having someone know they can win every single day.
Yeah. Talk about it was interesting. When I hear, skill set, what's the difference between skill set and tool set? And how do you differentiate between those two?
So skill set has everything to do with your personal behaviors, typically called characteristics, characters, the things you're doing unconsciously kind of stuff, those are really the skill sets. And we can improve those skill sets, but the skill sets are tied to the mindset. And that's what we disassociate from. We have to understand something, we have to chunk it and separate it, but to really comprehend something, we have to bring it back together. So your ability to change your behavior is a ability of dealing with capacity or capabilities. And those key things are really to go along with skill set. You can learn a new skill set, but you have to change the programming to support that skill set. Challenge with going immediately to the tool set, right, is that you haven't changed your belief systems about that tool set and you won't support it long term.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes more. It's so interesting, that distinction. So another question I have for you is, what it sounds like you have a lot of you drew from a lot of Eastern philosophical influences, and so what about samurais or the Eastern philosophy or appealed to you and your coaching and your methodology?
So interestingly enough, when I was actually in the sales game, much younger in my life, I ran into a book called Samurai Selling. And in that book, it introduced me to this concept of what samurai loosely translated means, which means in service of others. So our company's name really is in service of your success. That's Samurai Success. So that integration into this reminds us who we are and what our purpose is, what our mission is, to be of support of you. And that's the way we work as coaches, is that you really aren't coming to us for our advice. We need to figure out a way to get the hell out of the way so we can really be of service to you. That's why we work so much on this programming concept, right? Because if I'm just having a conversation with Chris and I'm just waiting for my time to talk, like I've got an idea, I'm not listening to anything else, I'm not really being in service to you, man. I'm just talking. We're just having a communication or whatever we're doing. As a matter of fact, we're just having a singular dialogue, a monologue. I'm just talking to me. And so many of us do this. We're not really helping each other. So to really be in service, this is why it's so important to understand the samurai concept. Now, I've also been studying the art of the samurai for the last 25 years on Aikido. So that has a lot to do with it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really, there's a lot of interesting influences, especially Eastern philosophy, Buddhism, and different martial arts that you can apply in especially Western cultures and Western ideals. So moving on, can you for example, you mentioned there's a new type of client. There's millennials and Gen Z, and it's a totally different mindset, had total different value and belief. So how are you adapting to this new shift in generational differences and ways of thinking in your coaching?
So the big challenge, of course, is that the main difference between the generations, the owners typically, and then the working for the labor force, is that they have a different priority of life. And for most of us, our identity was so wrapped up in us building this empire and making money and having material things. And they've learned from us, that's not how it works. And they're actually a pretty smart group of people when you really step back and go, this whole generation looks at the world completely different. They want to have something different. They want to have the experiences of life, Chris, not the material things of life. As a matter of fact, they find those things, just as we have experientially, is that they weigh us down, that the things that we own eventually start owning us, and they don't want any of that crap. So it's a really interesting thought experiment that you got to do with this, that says, and by the way, as an entrepreneur, we're designed for this, right? We're here to solve problems. Here's the big problem of the next 25 years. This is not going away. This labor force, this generation, is going to have to be the thing that's going to supply this labor for us. So how do we solve the problem? Well, then you have to understand they're looking at it from a different thing. They want to come here, they want to make some money, and they want to get on with their life and go have life give them experiences, not work. Okay, solving the problem now. If I only have an employee whose intention and engagement is only going to be for a shorter period of time, then I've got to do something as a business owner to bring everything I can to keep them as focused as possible. And that is where that design work comes in again, that structure comes in. Because if my employee comes in at 8:05 and leaves at 4:30 rather than 5 o'clock, right, kind of stuff, then how do I make that time the most effective and efficient? Then I structure and design their job so that they walk in and they know, boom, 8:05, this is where I can start. And if I'm finished at 3 o'clock, it's okay, because that process is connected to the process in the cubicle next to me. And all around that organization, I've built a system of processes that allows each person to be efficient at their own level. And then they can move up based upon, hey, you're doing really well with this amount of processes. We can add this to it. We can raise the rates, and you let your team rise to the top and reward those folks. But for the rest of them who just want to have the paycheck, structure your business as that.
Interesting. And how does executive coaching fit into this era of remote hybrid work and kind of, this idea of the corporation? A lot of people are transitioning into more solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, business owners. So, and you mentioned this labor force, almost dwindling. And then also we have AI coming as well, which is going to be a huge component of the labor force. So how does executive coaching fit into all of this changing dynamic?
That's an interesting thing, because when you start taking a look at that as a coach, as an owner of a company that's been spending, counting on this time frame, you can actually get freaked out with AI a little bit, because it's taking, okay, slow down, David. What's really going on here? And when I started really doing that a number of years ago, I realized that there's many jobs that AI is not going to replace. And guess what? This human interaction thing isn't something that AI currently does. Maybe later on with quantum computing and AI conversations, great. But there's an amazing missing skill set for us as humans about how to communicate with each other, about how to be able to relate to each other. And that is where executive coaching is really specialized, at least from Samurai Success's standpoint, is we make sure you understand the human technology of things. Because once you start forgetting that, you start disassociating, all of a sudden you have this good versus evil. And you can see that playing out in our society where it's us versus them. And that conflict, what creates the challenges in most businesses, then you have to solve for that. So our approach to being very cooperative is a natural facilitator to be able to say, hey, there's some skill sets, some tool sets and mindsets that I'm going to have to learn if I'm going to be in the business place and interacting and building something together.
I love that. Lastly, give some examples of some client success stories, and how can people find you and reach out to you and work with you?
There's so many opportunities to be able to talk about that for 27 years, right? To really get it down to this thing. But one of the most remarkable client things that we had was a client that was doing, 10 or 12 houses a year with 11 people. We really started structuring. And by the way, this guy is an absolute phenom. You just have to structure his team appropriately to make it work. And I bet a lot of the folks listening to them have great talents, but they're missing the structure of not only the structure of the process stuff, but also the team dynamic, the culture that really collaborates with that. So you have this amazing talent. He was doing 11 houses. And, of course, today he's not doing 11 houses with 11 people. He has 150 people, and he's doing over $150 million of empire building and stuff. All that stuff, we could go off for a tangent of 2 hours of those things. Here's what it really comes down to. What do you want to do? How big are your goals? What do you really want to accomplish? Because that's all that really matters in this conversation. You hiring a coach to be able to do that should be based upon two things: your commitment to your work and the fit of the coach. So if you remember those two things from this conversation, commitment and fit, that's what we always focus on with our clients. Because we're not always a fit for everybody that we talk to. We're just not. We know who we are. We know how we can help you when we actually take you through a process to have you recognize whether we're going to be a good fit for you or not. Yeah, so as long as you're committed to your goals and where you want to go, we can help.
Yeah, excellent. And how can people find you and check out your work?
Best way to reach us is at samuraisuccess.com. And you can actually, I'm on Instagram now at David C. Olcott. So that's the best way to be able to reach us in those two platforms.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation, and it was very enlightening, and keep up the great work.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me on.